all from your guidance there, Adam.
Obviously.
Yeah. Good morning and welcome to another episode of Sales TV Live.
Another exciting episode of Sales TV.
Exciting episode for many reasons. One, because we've got you on the show, Adam. And another is we have our special guest, Kevin Beales, who we'll introduce in a second. I'm your bearded sales guy coming to you, streaming to you from the Algarve in Portugal now, my new home. And so, let's do a round of intros. So I think everybody knows you, Adam. So shall we start with Kevin?
By all means.
Alex, great to be here again, and thanks so much for inviting me back. Yeah, so I'm Kevin Beales. I'm the CEO and founder of My Sales Coach. So we match people to the perfect sales coach for their journey and their role to support them as a one-to-one coach. And excited to be here today to talk BDRs.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think last time you were on, we spoke about the survey that you'd done, the state of the BDR industry.
Yeah.
And I think towards the end of that show, we were asking ourselves a question: is there a future for BDRs? But before we go there, Adam, tell us about yourself.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Adam Gray. I'm co-founder of DLA Ignite. I guess we are the world's largest social selling consultancy. Yes. Wow. So delighted to be here.
Welcome. It's great to be back on the show. I feel like I've been away for ages, although it
does feel like a bit of a hiatus, doesn't it?
Yeah. As you know, I've started a track with Dr. Grant Van Ulbrich on sales transformation. But anyway, I'm back today, and what better topic than is there a future for BDRs? I think it's fair to say the job is harder than ever, and whilst businesses have often put their most junior people in a role that is arguably one of the hardest roles in sales, we now find ourselves in a position where we're questioning whether or not there is a future for BDRs. So, to kick us off with a question, what do we feel the life expectancy of BDRs are today?
And do you mean life expectancy as how long that role lasts, as opposed to how long someone lasts in that role? Like, how long does the role of BDR there?
Good question. I was thinking the former. How long will that discipline, that role last?
Yeah.
But it's also another good question that you pose, Kevin, that we can perhaps get to.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I think, first of all, we have, just setting the scene, we have this perfect storm going on right now that is threatening certainly what has been the role of a BDR, as organizations are striving for sales efficiency, needing ROI, the end of growth at all costs, all of those things. The role of a BDR, as you say, is becoming tougher and more challenging, and therefore results are becoming harder to come by. You're also being pressed by the mass automation and AI that is making channels more difficult to make channels and outreach successful. And then even when you create opportunities in a world where people are being more efficient with their cash and budgets, and those meeting to deal ratios are becoming compressed. So all of this creating this perfect storm where, if you're striving for sales efficiency, do the economics of a BDR make sense anymore? And I think certainly from the rhetoric that we hear from many organizations, certainly what worked before is not going to work in the future, and is not going to be sustainable. So, we're seeing, this change and this rebirth, and, lots of talk of things like going from armies to SWAT teams, the bar becoming higher, and having, smaller, better supported, better trained, better resourced teams, rather than large numbers of people. To your question of how long does it last, I think it is an evolution rather than a death of this role. I don't think the role of a BDR dies, but it definitely evolves, and evolves quite dramatically in a way that I think has quite profound impact on the whole profession. Because let's be fair, we've gone through a whole generation where people arrive in sales through that role. People learn their skills through that role. And we've had quite large volumes of people in growing teams coming into sales through that role. And as that changes as well, I think that has quite a profound impact way beyond BDRs, which you can maybe talk about. So yeah, I don't think we're talking about the death, but I think we are talking about dramatic changes. And those changes are happening now, and are going to continue, especially as the rise of AI and AI tools becomes a bigger part of this equation as well.
Yeah.
So why do you think it's not going to die? And the reason I ask that is that from the customer's perspective, if I'm a buyer, I want to deal with a salesperson.
Yep.
I want to deal not with somebody that can sell me something, but somebody that can solve my problem. So you're an experienced sales expert in this product area. You understand the dynamics of your product. You understand how your product needs to be implemented. You understand how this solves my challenges. And you've probably got some experience of my industry. So you understand what my specific needs are around this. I can understand why, even though salespeople are not the most popular people for buyers in many cases, I can understand why the buyer would want to talk to a salesperson. I can see no opportunity as to why a buyer would want to talk to a BDR, where your job is quite literally a fluffer, isn't it? Your job is to warm up the prospect before the prospect is passed on to somebody that knows what they're talking about. Now, I'm being deliberately damning in the language that I use there, but I get it from the company's perspective. You're a salesperson, you've got a 6-figure salary. You're a BDR, you've got a 5-figure salary. Well, it's an order of magnitude difference. Clearly, I'm going to get more of the cheap seats. But from the buyer's perspective, I can see no rationale for why they would want to deal with a BDR at all.
So let me push back slightly there, Adam. So
Please.
I do totally get the point, and I get the point. Who is looking forward to the cold call or the outreach that they're going to get in the next half an hour. But again, this is, I think, where that evolution of a higher quality, a lower pool, but a higher quality of BDR does become effective. Because whilst we might all talk about we want to research ourselves and find the right solutions, and obviously we're again in a world where it's easier when we get further down the buying journey. When we're researching ourselves, from an organization's perspective, we want to connect and have connections with qualified people whose problem we can solve. And I think you touched on that. Like a BDR isn't necessarily the person that's going to solve my problem, but they're perhaps the person that's going to make the connection and identify that I have the problem. Maybe the problem that I'm not aware of or is top of mind right now, maybe the problem that I don't know that there are solutions out there for. They're going to make that connection and start that conversation. And that's what obviously that's what great BDRs do today. The bar becomes higher. I want to make that connection is with more qualified people who have that problem, whether they're aware of that or not. Maybe there are signs of intent in things that they have done. Maybe there are signs of intent in their role and activity, and the whole conversations again are becoming smaller volumes of conversations, smaller volumes of outreach, but much more considered, much more personalized, and much more about, to your point, solving problems. And that BDR is effective as the person who can start the conversation between an individual.
Isn't that BDR a salesperson? So when I worked with Alex at Oracle, Alex did exactly that. He would reach out to customers. He would have a conversation with the customers. He would identify their problems. He would say, because I've spoken with 20 different companies in the last month who look just like you, who are having these problems, this is how that looks like they're solving them. And they'd say, so how do I configure this bit of software? And Alex would say, I need to call in my my pre-sales expert that can show you how the product actually works from an operational perspective. And they'd say, well, how do I roll this out across the organization? And Alex would say, well, I need to speak to one of my consulting experts that will show you how you do the organizational change around this product. So this sounds to me like what we're looking to do is to find skilled salespeople, but not pay them a sales salary, to pay them a BDR salary.
Yeah. So let me come back to the paying bit. And I think, part of the challenge, as we described at the top of the show, is that we bring in the most junior people to do perhaps what's the hardest role. I don't think it's unfair to describe it as the hardest role here. I think the flip side and the challenge to what you're saying, in a perfect world, do we have 360-degree salespeople who are capable of prospecting, of creating pipeline? And I'm a huge advocate of everyone should be selling and prospecting in sales. That is part of the job, and it's part of the job for anyone at any level. And again, maybe the days where I can be an AE or a BDM and just expect my calendar to be filled by BDRs or marketing are also gone. And, so the prospecting is part of everyone's job, in this future state. But I think going back to, because it's so hard, because it is time consuming, to find those great fit, to research, to prospect, to personalize, and create pipeline from that prospecting outbound. What we're not expecting is our account executives, our BDMs, to be spending all of their time doing that, a proportion of their time. And should they be more experienced and better at that? Yes. But I think, again, the economics become even more challenged for us as organizations if we then have people on higher salaries and more experienced spending significant amounts of their time creating pipeline, because the economics just become even more challenged by that.
But as the buyer, I don't care, do I? So I think what we're seeing potentially is that we've got, as a buyer, I deserve a fully fledged salesperson engaging with me rather than a BDR. I've got no time for a BDR because I want somebody that can actually answer the questions, not say, I'll go away and find the answer to that. So isn't the BDR role transitioning from somebody that does cold calling and cold emailing and meeting setting into somebody that does desk research and analysis, and then hands that folder full of stuff? Here are 20 companies that you might want to talk to, Kevin. All of them seem to fit your ideal customer profile for people that you seem to be getting traction with at the moment. I mean, I had a conversation with a sales leader who worked very closely with his BDR, a salesperson who worked very closely with his BDR. And I said to him, who's better at converting a conversation into pipeline, you or your BDR? And he said, me, obviously. Okay. how many conversations do you get to have as a team? How many do you get enough? No. So why would you squander those few that you get by giving them the first contact to somebody that isn't as credible as you? That's not a criticism of the BDR, because this is a young, inexperienced, hungry person. But surely, because the challenge for every organization is not closing, it's having conversations with somebody that you can then close. So when you get one of those rare conversations with someone that is a good fit, that might be interested, that is in the right sort of buying cycle at the moment, surely you want to maximize the chance by putting your best players on that, not your trainees.
You do. So let me take maybe two parts of the answer to that. So again, I think another thing that is becoming far more predominant now is those qualified marketing opportunities, those inbound opportunities. In the past, they may have gone straight to a BDR or a BDR team who goes through perhaps that more frustrating qualification for you as a buyer, where you're not necessarily getting the value that you need from that individual. You feel like you're being qualified rather than value
helped.
is being shared with you. That, I think, is changing, and I think because marketing budgets are going down, cost of marketing leads is going up. To your point, do you want to squander those opportunities with someone who, through no fault of their own, is the most inexperienced seller in the organization? Then I think the answer is increasingly no, and you're seeing that dynamic change. But back to your point of yes, definitely a big part of the role is that research and that personalization and that identifying of potential good fit opportunities. But you're not necessarily going to hand that on to your BDM or account executives, because at that moment in time, that's just that's just a hypothetical. Here is some research that shows this individual, this organization may resonate with the problem, and I've got some reasons to believe they may resonate with the problem, and we may be able to have a valuable conversation both for them and for us. I don't think as a seller, the role of as a buyer, I don't think as a buyer, the role of a BDR done well is a negative experience, because you're not expecting to pick up a cold call and to have half an hour's conversation about how this integration might work, how this problem has been solved for other people. What you're not expecting that in-depth conversation. You're basically identifying that there is a reason to have that conversation with a qualified person. There is a reason why a problem that I might have may be solved by a solution that I may or may not be aware of, and the timing of which makes it a worthwhile investment of my time as a buyer, and obviously as sellers as well. And it is that qualification piece. I don't therefore need to be frustrated that I have a BDR that is at the start of their career and can't have that fully fledged conversation, because that's not when I want to have that fully fledged conversation yet anyway. They're just setting the scene for that, making sure that that's a valuable use of my time as a buyer as much as my time as a seller.
We've got an interesting point here from Javier. By the way, not all BDRs are young and inexperienced. It depends how you build your engine and structure. I find having a balance in experience creates more credibility within the team itself. Javier, it'd be good to know if you're a BDR or a manager of a BDR team when you reference the engine and the structure. And I think what's interesting as I listen to the tennis match you guys are having is is this conundrum that we're experiencing between the search and qualify method or model within businesses, looking for the 5% of people that might have a problem that you solve, versus what I think where Adam is going with this in terms of taking that more relationship first approach with not just the 5% of the territory, but the whole territory. So when there is a need, you know, the buyer is more likely to share more, you know, with the BDR or whoever it is. To your point, Kevin, I think about having a prospecting culture, but it doesn't that then shine a spotlight on the strategy and moreover the approach. So, you know, when I say strategy, one might think, well, sales strategy, but actually a typical sales strategy is and marketing strategy is based on searching and qualifying, and actually with the height and thickness of the zones of resistance our buyers are putting up, do we even call it a sales and marketing strategy anymore, or should we call it a relationship building strategy?
Well, I think it's, you know, it is about building a relationship, but again with the right people. I just want to pick up on maybe something that, you know, that from Harry's point as well. I think, you know, it's a very fair point that not all BDRs are young and inexperienced, but I think that has been the predominant route of the market. And it comes back to a point you made earlier, Alex, that, you know, you have that inexperienced and frankly less well paid. It's that starter salary that has been that BDR role within a lot of organizations that's maybe made it into that first time role, into that inexperienced seller. I think, again, one of the things that I can see shifting and changing is as we go from that army to that SWAT team, is that it perhaps challenges that these don't need to be inexperienced people coming into sales for the first time. They don't need to be our least well remunerated team or our least well trained team. And maybe coming back to Adam's point, that the expectations of the conversation that I may be able to have as a BDR will also go up as part of that. But I think, you know, that's where this shift from growth at all costs, let's build big BDR teams, let's hire people that are inexperienced, let's pay them an amount of money that makes that model work, is now all being challenged. And I think, you know, that is part of that evolution. And you know, a good point.
I think that's really important, because when you were describing how the BDR approaches me and we have our first interaction at a point when they're setting the scene, you know, you painted a picture which is actually perfectly okay, you know, perfectly reasonable for that to be your assumption as the salesperson, and for me to go, actually, I had a really nice interaction with this person, you know, so I'm perfectly happy with that. I think that in my experience, in the experience of the majority of people who have been sold to, that's not what they receive, though, is it? What they receive is a hideous experience by somebody that doesn't understand anything, and it's a waste of everybody's time. Exactly. And I think that you nailed it when you said we need to throw away this concept of, that's not exactly what you said, but I'm paraphrasing, get rid of this concept of building big BDR teams where it's growth at any price. We hire it low cost, low value, low experience people, and we just get them to throw mud at a wall. And instead we make this a super skilled, finessed role where people's superpower is on having that first conversation with people. And we hire people that are brilliant at that, rather than just someone that isn't yet fit to be a salesperson. And I think that's a massive shift, though, isn't it? Massive shift.
It's a huge shift, because I think the other thing that has happened that has been counter to what you've just described there, but not necessarily for the right reasons, is that everyone has been sold, or I say everyone, in so many organizations, the dream is sold on come in, do your time as a BDR, and then leave that for another role, often within 9-12 months in some organizations, of, you know, your first introduction to sale. And it's been created as almost like a rite of passage of you come in, do this role, and then you go on to something else, and it's like it's the stepping stone that everyone just has to take. What it's not seen as is a career opportunity, an opportunity where you can grow both personally and in salary and remuneration, and can make that a longer term part of your career. It's been just positioned as this stepping stone, as the shortest possible period of time that you can step in and out of being a BDR as being aspirational, which is then, and probably one for another time, created a whole generation of perhaps people that then weren't ready for that next step, weren't helped be prepared for that next step, who were then thrust into the world of owning a quota and living or dying without having necessarily really had sufficient experience and sales experience to be prepared for that moment.
Yeah. Now, look, with 1 minute to go, and I've got Rob Durant ringing in my ears saying, keep it to 26 minutes, keep it to 26 minutes. So it feels like we're just getting going. So with 1 minute left to go, what should we be measuring in terms of helping BDRs improve performance, right? Should it be activity, or should it be based on relationship strength with target audience? 30 seconds from each of you.
I'll jump in first, Adam, and then love to hear your view. So it's not activity, it's like, this is becoming more creative. It's becoming more around research, having the right highly personalized conversations, using the social tools and the dark social to make sure that you're spending time with the right prospects in the most creative ways, using great copywriting and all of those things. It's not about activities that can be measured like they once upon good, send this many emails, make this many dials, and expect this many results.
I think I kind of agree with you. I think the problem is that things like, yes, you want to measure strength of relationship and stuff like that, and that's difficult. It's a very subjective measure. You're my best friend, Kevin, and you say, actually, I can't stand you. So actually there's often a disconnect between my view of it and yours as the recipient. I think, though, that we need to be careful that the leading indicators that we measure are indicators that actually are pointing in the right direction. Clearly, calls that have a next action, a positive next action, are the key determinant factor here. But in order to get there, we need to be clear that we understand what are the levers that we pull that drive that outcome. Now, it will be, in part, some of those metrics that are out of date. So how many outbound things do I do? Whether you do it by telephone, by email, or by social doesn't matter, but you have to do some. But it isn't just about those. So it has to be those that progress, that ultimately convert into business. And I think that when people are able to tie that entire journey together, that's when you're able to say, okay, to get the right number of meetings and the right number of things that we close at the end of it, I need to do X of these. Because the reality is that doing 10X of them and getting 10 times as much business as you can handle out the back end is valueless.
Yeah. And on that note, we're going to have to cut it there. Thank you, gentlemen, for a wonderful discussion. I feel like we could definitely
Thanks,
have
Alex.
part two. And we didn't even get to your post about Tyson Fury.
God, I said we should have started with that, didn't I?
Thank you, Javier, for your comments. Until next time, we'll see you on Sales TV. Well, this afternoon, if you're dialing in this afternoon. Otherwise, it'll be next week, next Tuesday morning. Or if you're available on the 6th of June at 1 p.m., we have Sales Transformation Part 4. Until next time, take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.